continuing our investing series. We're doing investing right now. So far, we've covered flips, we've covered rentals, and now we're going to talk about something called owner finance. And it's been kind of a buzz thing lately. And I know a lot of people in Whiteline know about it because of Eric, and that's how Eric got his start. And coincidentally, that's how I got my start as well, mainly because I knew Eric. And I'll tell you all the funny story that goes before that. But I started thinking about something. One of the things that my clients really appreciate about me is that I'm an investor. And I always tell everybody whenever I go work with them, I'm like, hey, look, I'm not your HGTV kind of realtor. I'm not going to walk through and say, oh my God, could you just visualize? I don't do that. You may do that. That's fine. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But what I always tell everybody is I was like, hey, look, I'm also an investor. So I work a lot with houses that have problems, and I'm usually really good at sniffing out problems. So, my speech always says, please don't ask me if I like it. It doesn't matter if I like it. It matters if you like it, because I don't have to live here. The second thing is, guys, I can tell you what it's worth. I mean, I know I do a lot of comps, a lot of this. So I'm going to help you. I'm going to get you the best deal. I'm going to negotiate for you, but you're going to need to decide if you like it. But one of the things that my clients really appreciate is that I always have some sort of tip for them. I always have some sort of like, hey, look, this is what's going on here. This is what's going on there. So I wanted to start adding some fun little quick tips to the beginning of these, so that way you just kind of get a little bit more knowledgeable in things that are outside of the realtor realm. So today's, I brought inside with me. This is a coffee can that my wife bought of cinnamon hazelnut. And I just learned a nice little redneck trick to find out what was wrong with my yard. So for those of you who don't know, there's about three main kinds of grasses that grow in yards here in San Antonio, or in the San Antonio area. Some people have Bermuda grass, which is very thin kind of grass that grows straight up. Some people have fescue grass, which looks a little bit similar, but it's got thicker leaves. And what I have at my house is St. Augustine grass. It is a southern grass. It does like it. It is a thirsty grass. The problem with St. Augustine grass is that you can't seed it. It's very difficult to grow from a seed. So you either need to buy what they call plugs, like they've already grown it and they just take little plugs, or you got to go and buy what's the word I'm looking for? The sheets, the sod. You got to buy sod sheets. So if your grass dies, it's very hard to get it back where it needs to go, because you can't seed it, and you either have to resod it or make it spread again. And there's a couple of things that can cause it to die. And I kept misdiagnosing my grass. And now there's this whole spot in my yard that is just dead, that I've got to go buy a whole new pallet of sod for. Actually, probably 2 pallets, which is going to get really expensive. But I kept thinking it was something called brown patch. Brown patch is a fungus that grows in your grass. You can typically notice it because it grows in almost a perfect circular pattern as it grows back out, and it literally turns your grass brown. That's why they call it brown patch, but it's almost in a perfect circle. And mine was kind of growing in a circle, and that's why I thought it was. I was putting a fungicide down. It wasn't solving the problem. Then it started getting odd-shaped. So I did some research, and I learned a cool trick that I wanted to share with you. So my wife bought cinnamon hazelnut coffee, and when we were done, I cut the end off with a can opener. So now I've got this tube. And what you do is you take this tube right where your grass is dead to where it's alive. You push this down, and I hit it with a little rubber mallet, got it about 1 inch deep, and I filled the can with water. And what I was looking for is something called chinch bugs, which are extremely prevalent down here. And sure enough, they came up. They started floating to the surface. They almost look like fleas or lice, like little white little bugs. So I've been trying to treat for a fungus when I actually had an insect problem. So now I had to put down pesticide, and I think I fixed that. So today's trick is, if you want to find out if there's bugs in your yard, flood them out and keep it controlled so you can see what's going on. I thought that was a cool trick. So there's your quick tip for today: how to diagnose chinch bugs, CHINCH.
So do they actually kill the St. Augustine? I have the same problem that you have.
Yeah, they actually kill the St. Augustine. They'll eat the roots of the St. Augustine and kill it. And then they just progress as they keep going. The more they're eating, the more happy they are, the more they're breeding. And I'm serious. I've lost, I'd say 700 square feet of grass. That's just mud now. And of course, it's on the side of my house that has a little bit of a hill. So it's just a nightmare. And I've got to get something down to prevent erosion.
Did the circles you're talking about, did they kind of have like a yellow to
They
them?
start off kind of yellowish, and then they'll turn brownish. That's brown
Okay.
patch. And that's a
Okay.
fungus.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
if
try
it
this
starts getting
today.
off shade, or if you just want to check, what did it cost me? Nothing, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a fun thing. I just made my wife buy this kind of coffee for once, so I could have the can, and that was it. So fun little game, chasing down the critters. So today, off to our quick tip, back to the main topic, investing 101. So what I'm going to do today, guys, is I'm going to take you through. Eric started off with a guy named Mike, and they worked together for a long time, and they started doing little flips and little stuff like that. But then they got into a hard spot in 2008 and decided to start doing some owner finances. I'm going to spare you the whole thing. If you want to hear the whole story, we'll do that one time. But Eric started doing owner finance deals, and he got to the point where him and Mike were doing about 10 to 15 deals a month. I mean, they were doing 120-ish on average wholesale owner finance deals a month. They had an amazing machine going. That's about when I met Eric. He had written a book about owner finance, and I said, dude, I got to know what you're doing. And so I knew Eric from high school, but this is when I re-met him again, when we got back together and started learning real estate from Eric. And this was, I don't even know, 8 years ago, maybe something like that. Doesn't matter. So 8 years ago, we did this. And I started riding in the car with him and learning all this stuff. Him and I put together a class where we would teach people. And I always had to utilize Eric's expertise because he was definitely the expert in it. But I worked alongside Eric with the owner finance business for probably 3 years, I'm guessing now. There were 3 years-ish. So I watched a lot of these owner finance deals, and that's actually how I started real estate investing, was through owner finance deals. And there's a lot of pros and cons. I would help Eric teach because I've got a background in teaching, and I put together this webinar for him, this thing, so we could teach a lot of people. And I was like, you know what, this is a perfect thing to share with you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this to share with you guys. So bear with me for a second, because this one should be lots of fun. All right, and go. Can y'all see Eric's beautiful face? Yes? Okay, since there's a little wincing in the cameras, I'm assuming y'all can see him. So if you haven't met Eric yet, that's Eric right there. Yes, he still has that much hair. His beard's a little bit grayer, but that's a great photo of him. So we're going to be talking about owner financing from A to B. So whenever you do an owner finance deal, the game is, the product that you want when you are done is something called a promissory note. If you've done any kind of transaction, that's one of the pieces of paper that your buyer will sign if they're borrowing money. It is a promise to repay, a promissory note. Oftentimes we use the slang a note or a real estate note, because many people don't know what promissory note is. So what's a real estate note? A real estate note's an IOU secured by a property. I promise to pay you, and if I don't, you can have the property back. In a conventional real estate transaction, a buyer makes a down payment, obtains a loan, and signs a note promising to pay a certain amount each month to the lender until the loan plus interest, that's the big one, is paid. So that's what the end goal is. Whenever you do it, you do not hold the property anymore. The property transfers ownership, but there's a lien against it. And this note is what liens against the property. And that's what Eric wants. That's what he does. He still does it to this day. He goes out and creates notes. But why do we do this? So here's how his structure works. You don't have to do the first part. So you buy a property below market value, you renovate it. That's the same with just about any investing strategy, especially if you want to make decent money on it. But step 3 here is the kicker. You finance the property to the buyer. So you become the bank versus Wells Fargo or whoever other mortgage company is. You are now the mortgagor. They are the mortgagee. So they have to make these payments to you. Once you finance that property, you have created a note. Now, guys, there's a lot of steps in creating a note, and I can't get into all of them, but I will talk pretty in depth about it. Now, once you have that note, you can do one of two things. You can sell the note to an investor, which basically turns it into kind of a convoluted flip. Now, instead of selling the house to somebody, you're just selling the note. A lot of people really like real estate notes, and you'll see why in just a minute. Or what you can do is hold the note. Now, if you hold the note, that is how you create tremendous amounts of wealth. The example that I use all the time is I can sell a $100,000 house and actually make $300,000 on it if you hold the note. And we're going to walk through that example here in just a second. So when you go buy a house, guys, especially when you're doing owner finance, what kind of house are you looking for? You can buy these big, gigantic clunkers. You're going to spend a lot of money rehabbing those, and they tend to be really hard. But what I'm looking for is a house that's below market value that looks pretty decent. We call this grandma's house. Like grandma lived here for 100 years. She took good care of it, but the entire inside's dated and all that. That is the perfect owner finance house because you want to try and keep your renovations as low as possible. It's not a flip. I am not trying to take this house to the nth degree, unless, of course, you can, get the property on the left for like $10,000, then maybe it's worth your time. Just be careful. It's not a flip. You're not trying to get the most value out of this house because the financing is the value, and you'll see why in just a minute. So step one is the acquisitions. Step two, guys, is renovating it. When you go to renovate these houses, because they're owner finance houses, you don't have to have the golden toilet, the granite countertops, the super duper fixtures. That's what you see on HGTV. That's what everybody sees, and they want to, like, even as a flipper, guys, I when I flip houses, I still don't even do that. You don't want to, if you're spending an hour in a tile showroom trying to pick the perfect tile, you're not doing the owner finance game correctly. You just are not. You need to have very standard. What we're looking for is a safe house. I want a safe, clean, nice house. I don't want top of the line. So you put Formica instead of granite. You do minimal landscaping. I'm not going to go out there and put 7,000 flowers. I'm going to add some sod, maybe a little bit of a little mulch where it needs to go. I don't use tile. I'll use laminate flooring. It saves me a lot of money on the actual material cost and labor. It's a lot easier to do laminate. Contractor lighting versus designer lighting. Guys, I just finished a flip and I bought this entryway chandelier that cost $500. I would not do that in an owner finance house. I'm going to go to Home Depot and get what Home Depot has, and it usually says contractor pack because it's cheap, quick, and easy. I'm going to use prefab cabinets versus custom cabinets, guys. Whatever Home Depot's got, those shaker cabinets that are $100 a piece, that's what I'm putting in there. They're safe, they're clean, they're new, it's great. Financing is the value that you bring to these. The reason why that statement is so important is you have to think about who would want owner financing. Now, owner financing can be expensive. And the people that tend to be looking for owner financing are one of two people with bad credit or no credit. Those are the people that are looking for it. Guys, right now in our market, this changes all the time, but I think a 640 is the minimum credit score you can get right now to get a house. What if your credit score is 630 or 500? And it's because you had some medical bills that went south on you 5 years ago, but you really want to buy a house. Those are the people looking for owner financing. It's not your typical people that you'll be dealing with as a realtor. As a realtor, your first thing to do is when you meet somebody, you go, where's your pre-approval letter? Give it to me, right? I'm not going to show you a house. People that can't get pre-approved, you need to talk to them about owner financing. Are there owner finance houses in the MLS? Absolutely. The way they say it is, in Sabor, they say seller carry. The seller will carry the note, right? Not a bank, the seller will. Our goal is safe and affordable. By the way, guys, you don't want to owner finance houses that are $500,000. You want the lower side of medium. Like right now, Eric tells the story. I mean, he used to owner finance houses at $80,000. You just can't do that in today's San Antonio market. Now he's up to about 150 to 170 owner finance value. He's not trying to do a $700,000 house. You just don't want to do that. The payments are going to get out of it. We're looking to help the hardworking families. Another one that's very prevalent here in San Antonio is we have a very high Hispanic population, a lot of folks from Mexico. A lot of people from Mexico don't like using banks. They're very cash heavy. They're cash transaction. Those people tend to have no credit. Like you pull their credit and there's just nothing on that. And because of that, they have a very low credit score. Nothing wrong with that. It's just the truth of the matter. So if they went to a bank and said, I need to get pre-qualified, they can't do it. So that's who we're looking to help. You always want to make sure your house will appraise. I've seen so many people out there. If you start looking in the investment world, they will have a house that looks like this. They will say for sale, $200,000, owner financing available. That is in my humble opinion, incredibly dastardly. You're taking advantage of somebody at this point because you're selling them a house that's clearly not going to appraise for the value you sell it to them for. Um, it's just not good practice, guys. There's a lot of reasons why you want your note, the note that you create, to have value. If you need to sell it, you need to be able to sell it. If I created a note on that house right there for $200,000 and I went to anybody that knows anything about notes and said, hey, I need to sell my note to you, there's no way they would do it because they know they couldn't get the value back from their house. They wouldn't give me 200 grand. It doesn't make any sense. So step 3, find the home buyer. Guys, you are realtors out here, but if you're not yet, you're just watching this video, guys, we sell these houses a lot of times. There's Eric. We put signs up. I'm sure you've seen them. Owner finance. You don't need to be a realtor to do this. It helps if you are, but you don't have to put it in the MLS. If you can handle the transaction yourself, why wouldn't you do it? Okay. You do need to disclose that. We put phone numbers, put the signs out where they go. It's really easy to do this. It's really important to put them in high traffic areas, put them in front of the house, put them next to HEB, put them wherever they go. Don't overlook your free marketing, guys. You can do these in Craigslist, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, because the people you're trying to market to in owner finance probably don't have a realtor. Because you put it in MLS means that they're going to bring a realtor to this transaction, which means we're going to change the game a lot. Guys, they do need to have representation, but you can help them find that representation, hopefully with another white line agent. You can pay them probably a smaller percentage because you brought them to them. Just make sure that you're very, very aware and you disclose that you are a licensed realtor. That's going to be very, very important. If they need representation, they can get representation. You can ask another one. We do practice intermediary here. We're going to have to follow all of those rules because it is a real estate transaction. Those rules do not apply because something's in the MLS. The rules apply if it's real estate, and real estate is defined by land and by land, right? If there's land involved, you got to follow the rules. So follow the rules. Now, speaking of following the rules, when somebody goes to get pre-approved, that's my friend Robin. We've all met Robin. I love Robin. Robin does my owner finance deals as well. Not all, but 90% of the paperwork still needs to take place. You cannot skimp over all this. Just because somebody's got money doesn't mean that you can sell them your house and create a note. The rules still apply. Guys, you need to call a residential mortgage loan originator. You need to call somebody that is familiar with owner financing. They do not need to have a 640 credit score for you to sell them their home. You can make up whatever rules you want because you're the bank. You do need to be consistent with those rules. You can't accept somebody at 500 and not accept the next person if you do multiple deals. That's against the rules. You have to be consistent. You need a 640 to get an FHA loan, right? I think. Don't quote me on that, but you know where I'm going with that. You can make up whatever rules you want. Minimum credit score, 500. Minimum credit score, 0. Credit's not a problem, but you have to be consistent. You usually take a down payment. We like to say somewhere between 10 and 20% down. If I'm selling you a $100,000 house, I'm going to want at least $10,000 down. I need you to have some skin in the game, and that is important. You can choose to do a 0% down. Doesn't make a lot of sense, and you're kind of exposing yourself. We can get into that more later if you decide to do this. Just call me. We do pull credit. You don't have to, but we do. The reason why I like to pull credit is because a lot of things like foreclosures, bankruptcies, things like that, you make the rules. You can accept somebody with a foreclosure. You can accept somebody with a bankruptcy. But I want to know what's going on. If they've had 5 foreclosures in the last 5 years, yeah, I'm not doing that, right? So that's why I do pull credit. The rules that apply through all this is something called Dodd-Frank. In 2008, we had a huge housing crisis. People were not properly qualifying their loans. So they made this set of rules called Dodd-Frank. I think they came out in 2009. That means you do need to check their ability to repay. That's why you need an RMLO. An RMLO is a third-party person. Robin charges me 1%. So if I sell a $100,000 house, she charges me $1,000 to do this, but now I know I am Dodd-Frank compliant. On your first loan that you owner finance out, guys, you can do it on the back of an envelope for all I care. But the minute you go beyond one, you have to be Dodd-Frank compliant. So my general rule of thumb, I don't care if you do 1 or 700, you need to call an RMLO. Make sure that you have proof that you're not selling somebody a house that they can't afford. If you sell somebody an owner finance house for $200,000 and the payments come out to be $1,500 a month and all they make is $800 a month, you're breaking the law. That is a federal law that you are breaking. You have to prove that they have the ability, because what they don't want is somebody going, yeah, it's $10,000 down, it's $1,500 a month, and they say, yeah, they sign all the paperwork, and on month one, you foreclose on them and keep their $10,000. That's against the law, guys. You can't do it. But the general line is talk to them. And underwriting, guys, you are the underwriter. You make the rules on who gets a loan and who doesn't. And I've already said it once, and I'll say it one more time. You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent with the rules that you do. And your loan originator should help you with that. Just like I said, if you decide to do this as a career and you want to do a whole bunch of them, if you accept 540 for one person, you got to accept 540 for the next. All the other fair housing laws come into effect, guys. You do it on race, familial status, all that good stuff, gender. Paperwork is the most important part, guys. You can get in trouble. This is the one realm of real estate where you can get in federal trouble. Okay. Most of the laws that we go through are Texas state. You're going to deal with TREC. You can get in trouble with the feds here if you do not comply with Dodd-Frank. So that's why it's so important. I do an RMLO on every single one of my deals. I talk to her. She goes through it. She says, hey, here's your paperwork. It's all complete. And she'll show you they make this much money. It's all documented. We're good to go. You know what I mean? But she's not going to tell you if you should approve them or not. That's you. You're the underwriter since it's your property.
Is she doing the credit check as well, or is that something else?
She'll do the credit check as well.
Okay.
Yeah, she'll do the credit check as well. So what I do is there's a uniform application. Have y'all seen the uniform application? Whenever somebody applies for a home loan, they fill that same exact one out. And I say, look, you want to buy my house? That's great. Here's Robin's website. Start filling it out. And what the other thing, guys, is you have to be careful, because if they go on the website and they fill it out and Robin will come back, she goes, these guys approved for an FHA loan. If anybody comes knocking, they're going to have a hard time explaining why you didn't do them to FHA. Because with FHA, they can get a 3% interest rate. As an owner finance, you're charging 10. So are you really doing what's best for the customer, right? That's why I like using RMLOs, that it just helps you with all that. She'll tell you flat out, maybe you just sell the house as a flip. Who cares? I do charge a 10 to 12% interest rate. Guys, interest rates right now, I've seen them, 2.25, 3.5, somewhere in that range, right? Kind of where you're at. Guys, I do charge a higher interest rate. Now, why do I do that? Not because I'm trying to take advantage of them, because there's a risk to reward thing here for me. These are high risk clients. They have a low credit score. They have no credit score. Nobody else will lend to them. So you know what? Yeah, I'm going to lend to you at the higher rate. It's the same thing with a car. If you got bad, have you seen every car commercial, right? 0% APR this Christmas with appropriate credit, right? If you qualify, you get the good deals. If you don't qualify, you're going to pay a higher interest rate. That's just the way it is. And I do close at a title company. There is title insurance with this. I want my buyers to be protected. You know that as well as anybody else, guys. You don't have to close at a title company in order to do a real estate transaction. You can close with a lawyer. You need a notary. But some guys that do owner finance, they do it with their lawyers. I don't like that. I'd like another third party. So if you look at it, it's now not a transaction between me and the buyer. It is me, the buyer, an RMLO, and a title company. Everybody looking at the same file. The only thing that I decide on is the underwriting and the terms. They take care of all the other legal stuff, and it protects me from getting into any kind of trouble. Notesmith, guys, if you start doing a lot of them, there's a software called Notesmith that you can use to kind of keep track of everything, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So now you have created your note. When you are all done with the title company, they're going to give you a stack of paper that's just like this big. And one of them in there is called a promissory note. That note right there, guys, is what the goal is. You can do one of two things with that. You can sell it to an investor or you can hold it. If you sell it to an investor, so let's take that $100,000 house I was talking about. And I said, I want 10% down. So they give me $10,000. So now I've created a note for $90,000. Those people owe me 90 grand plus interest. That's the sexy part. If I hold that, their payment's going to be roughly $1,000 a month. You know, some of that's taxes and insurances, but I'll get probably $600 a month off of that for the next 30 years. $600 a month for 30 years, guys. Y'all do the math. 280 something thousand dollars, right? That's a lot of money. You have to be patient. They pay you every single solitary month. If you sell it to an investor, if I took that note and I walked over to Eric and I said, hey, Eric, I have this note for $90,000. Do you want to buy it from me? Most of the people that buy notes will not buy it for $90,000. You can. Eric does it all the time. Mike does it all the time. Henry does it all the time. Friends of mine, they do it all the time. You got to have a track record and you got to know who you're selling them to. But a lot of them will want to discount the note. Hey, I'll buy that note for $80,000. All right. You know, if you want to. Can you sell it at face value? That's what I was talking about. Passive versus active. Guys, when you hold the note, you are a passive investor. When you sell notes, you become active. What does it mean by passive? Passive means I sit on my couch and there's a $600 check that shows up every month. I'm not having to do anything for it. I've already done my work. Active, if you're out selling the note, that means you got to go out and hustle and try and sell your note. But it's nice because you have multiple exit strategies. I just sold 2 notes that I held for about 3 years. I was getting whatever the payment was for 3 years, and I decided I need some capital. So I just turned around and sold it. I was like, okay, never mind. How much is left on the note? Well, it started at 90,000. Now we're down to 86. Will you give me 86? No, I'll give you 80. Fine. You know, that's the things that you have to decide. And the default rate. The default rate's a very important thing. Default rate means how many people do you have to foreclose on? Because you're the bank, you can foreclose on these people. If they stop making payments, you can foreclose on them. Guys, I am not going to go into what it takes to foreclose on somebody. Get a lawyer, go foreclose on them, but you can take the house back. Okay? If done properly, I studied Eric's business for a long time, that for 10 years they were doing 100 notes a year. Dude, 1,000 notes. Eric's done so many of them. And I literally took the time to go back and look at his default rate. Because he used an RMLO, because he did his due diligence, because he followed Dodd-Frank, his default rate was almost the exact same as the FHA, which was like 3.4%. So 3 out of every 100 notes he'd have to foreclose on. That's the same as FHA. Guys, these people that need owner finance are not the dredges of society. They're just people that don't have credit, okay, or something happened. So, but if you do your due diligence, you won't have to do that. The guy, remember that ugly house that I showed you that somebody was going to sell for 200? They're hoping to foreclose on those people. Take the house back, sell it to the next victim. Take the house back, sell it to the next victim. I've seen people do it. I'm not going to say names because this video is going on the internet. It's shady business practice. Don't be that person, because sooner or later, that Dodd-Frank rule is going to come around and it's going to hurt. So things to consider. When you sell your note, you get cash now. Are you going to service the note? Who's in charge of making sure they make their payment? If they don't make their payment, who sends them the nasty gram? That's called servicing the note. You can outsource that, guys. Leverage and holding the note is my retirement plan. That's Eric's retirement plan. Guys, I'll explain that in just a little bit. We'll talk about that. So, quick question. We did this last time for those of y'all that were there. What is your return on investment if you have $0 invested? If I put $0 into an investment and I make $100 a month, what is my return on investment? Anybody?
Wait, say the question again.
The answer is infinite.
Oh.
If I put $0 down and I make $1, that is what's called an infinite rate of return. What's really awesome about note investing is, if done properly, you can have an infinite rate of return on your money. Now, how do I get it? I get all my money back out. It's the same with the rentals that I talked about with the BRRRR strategy last week. Guys, creative financing does have to do with buying the house, but it also has to do with getting your money out. Because if I put $100,000 into a house and I sold it for $100,000, yes, I'm getting $600 a month, but I traded 100 grand for that. How do I get my 100 grand back? Let's talk about that. So in my beautiful little house, that let's say this for this example, I buy it for 50 grand. I put 20 grand into it. I've put $70,000 into this property. Maybe I borrowed hard money. Maybe it came from my bank. Doesn't really matter. I turn around and sell that house for 100 grand. If I do that as a flipper, how much money did I make? Easy math, right? I made 30 grand. Okay. But I don't want to flip this house. 30 grand is cash now, and I walk away from the deal. That's a great little flip, man. People in San Antonio will do that all day long. I'd do that. I mean, it's a good deal. Let's say I decide to owner finance it. So I say, hey, look, I'll owner finance this. You owe me 10 grand down. I need you to put 10% in. So I finance them $90,000. So my total now is 60. I'm 60 grand in. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
I was a total of 70, but I got 10 right away. So now I'm 60 grand into this house, but I've got a note on it. Let's say I finance it for $90,000. I say, hey, look, you can do 30 years. Your interest rate's going to be 11.3%. My monthly payment is now $877.55. That's just the P&I, just the principal and interest. That does not include taxes and insurance. Okay. I do escrow that for my people. You can choose not to or do it. I would recommend you do it, but they need to pay taxes and insurance because you sold them the house. It is their responsibility now. You're just responsible for the note. I don't have to fix a toilet if it breaks. It's your house. If you own your house, do you call the bank when your toilet breaks? They don't care. That's what's nice about this, guys. You don't have to screw with all the stuff that renters do. So monthly payments is $315,000 for over 360 months on the $60,000 that I invested. That is a total net profit of $255,000. Or if I sold it as a flipper, I'd make 30. So essentially, I could do one owner finance or 9 flips that look identical to that to get the same return. But guys, remember, I still have $60,000 of my own money out there. 60,000 for 255, pretty good deal. So what Eric does, which I think is awesome, is he takes that $90,000 note and he goes to a bank. Now, which bank? That's a long story. We'll go down that later. But he gets 80% of the unpaid principal balance. So that's $90,000. So he goes to the note, he goes to the bank, he goes, hey, look, bank, I got this note worth $90,000. Can I have a loan on this note? They go, yeah, we'll give you 80% of it, which is $72,000. But now I have to pay the bank back $72,000, right? But I got 72 grand in my pocket. They'll give me a 10-year loan at 5%. I owe them $763 a month for 10 years. So I have 60,000 in the property. I just got 72 from the bank. So now I have a net profit of 12 grand and a monthly profit of $144 a month. So instead of making 877, I'm only making 144 because I got to take the 877 from my homeowner and I'm going to pay 763 to the bank. So my net is 144 a month. Nothing real sexy about that. But it's amortization that is the sexy thing. So guys, if they decide to sell their home at any point during this, how many people live in their house for 30 years? Not many. The average note only lasts 7 years. So I think when I made this, in 7 years, you see those green arrows, guys? An amortization table tells you how much interest they pay each month versus how much principal. And if y'all remember that, it slowly switches. At the beginning, it's a lot of interest and a little bit of principal. At the end, it's a lot of principal and a little bit of interest. The bank gets paid first. So in 10 years or 7 years, guys, if they decide they want to move, they can. If they decide they want to refinance, I don't care. They've made payments to me for 7 years and they still owe me $83,000 because they're paying their interest first. That's the way every bank in the world works. There's nothing shady about this. It's called amortization. So after 10 years, the bank paid off the loan. They still owe me $83,000 of a $90K loan. So once I've paid the bank off, so I've been making those payments to the bank for 10 years. Remember, I've got a 30-year note with those people. And in 10 years, I'm done paying the bank. So now the $877 is mine 100%. So I'll make another $210,000. So I got my money back. I cashed out 12 grand at closing and the borrower paid off that loan for me. And now I'm making $210,000 more dollars on a house that I sold for 100 grand. No money out of pocket. So this one right here, guys, this goes with how, I'm not going to go through all these real quick because I'm going to try and save on time. But if I borrowed money to do this whole thing, you could do that. Every time you flip a house, guys, you create another job. And that's the dead honest truth. You need to find a way for you to get paid over the long term. Flipping houses, again, is the sexiest thing in the world. Everybody likes it. Everybody sees it on HGTV. But in that example I just gave you, I made $30,000. I don't know how long you can live off $30,000, but sooner or later it's going to run out. Then you got to go do another one. Then you got to go do another one. Imagine if you just did 10 of these. And in 10 years, you've got 10 of these things paid off. If you did one note a year, guys, in 10 years, you would have $2.5 million in passive income waiting for you. If you did one note a year for 10 years. Pretty cool thing. So that's how you go about doing all those things. Questions, comments, concerns, there's my calculator, those you wonder, about, or any questions at all about the owner finance model that I can answer for you. I'm just that good of a teacher.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to need private tutoring on this one because I'm like, it's way over my head. I did have a question. I don't know if it's relevant to what you were just talking about, but because you are an investor, but you're also a real estate agent. Do you always because you use an RMLO and you go through that process, like you said, if they come up and they sit here and say, well, they actually qualify for XYZ loan, do you then just encourage them to then finance it that way? Because, you know, I've actually had a couple people ask me about owner financing, and my recommendation is always find out first if you can qualify for another type of loan, because you're going to save money on your interest and everything else like that. That's always my response. And then if they decide, if they don't qualify or whatever, and they still want to pursue owner finance, then we move forward with that. But
your response, Joey, is 100% correct.
Okay.
You need to do what's in the best interest for your client. If I can buy this house at 100,000 for 3% or 100,000 for 11%, which one's better for your client? Right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. You need to do best on that. Now, maybe they say, nope, I don't want this on my credit, or no, or whatever, right? That's fine. If something like that happens, if you have a client that wants to do something that's just oddly not in their best interest, you need to contact me, Eric, somebody, because we need to have them sign additional disclosures, because you did recommend that they do the smarter thing. We need to have forms filled out. There's a lot of paperwork involved with that, because I want them to know that's fine. You do what you want. You're grown up. You make your own decisions. But yeah, if they can qualify for FHA, I just sell it as a flip. You know what I mean? If they're just completely in love with that house. Now you can decline to sell that house as an FHA. You don't have to sell it. If I bought this house I'm like, nope, I choose not to sell it to an FHA loan. You can do that, right? It's going to be hairy, but you can. Or you can just say, hey, look, you qualify for an FHA loan. Why don't we go look for maybe, because the payments at 11% on $100,000 are going to be very similar to $150,000 at 3%. Hey, why don't we go look at a little bit nicer of a house? It's going to be about the same payment. You can redirect, you know what I mean? But yes, your answer is correct. It's hard to be nervous when your mind's on service. That's a thing that I live by. When I go out and I talk to people and I try and sell and I do all that stuff, guys, I am genuinely trying to help. And if you do what's right by your client, you'll never get in trouble. You know what I mean? You've got to just do what's right. So to answer your question, yes, I tell everybody to get pre-approved.
Okay.
I mean, if they fail to get pre-approved, great, let's look at owner finance deals. Just know it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah, because I've had a couple people contact me about owner finance, and my reaction is always like, ooh, that's, you're talking about an interest rate I was like, why do you want to do owner finance is always what and then I segue and go, and you may be surprised what you can qualify for, because a lot of it has to do with the down payment, but you're paying more in the down payment, it sounds like, with an owner finance, like you want 10%. So there's programs out there. I've got a client that has a 0 down, like conventional loan. It's, so
there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know what's really weird is a lot of people think that owner finance deals are only for people with low income or whatever. I sold an owner finance deal for a $700 and something thousand house. It was a doctor who made a ton of money, but he went through a divorce. He did, you know what I mean? He spent a bunch of stupid money on stupid things. His credit was crap and he went through a divorce. He wanted to buy a new house. But he couldn't quite, the fact that he made, $500,000 a year was moot because his credit sucked. And so he's like, so we went owner finance that house. There's different situations for everybody, but like I said, always act in the best interest of your client. Always, 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 always. I mean, there's no faster way to get in trouble. And plus, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. You know what I mean?
I have a question. Going back to the flipping, how, like, let's say you see you're scrolling through the MLS or whatever, and you see a house that's listed that looks clearly distressed or almost distressed, but how do you determine if it's a good buy, that you're not going to lose a ton of money in it?
That's the game, isn't it?
Yeah. How do you determine that? Like, if you're just now getting into it or you want to get into it and you're looking around, how do you determine, like, oh, something like that may be good? How do you figure all that out?
Well, watch the flipping video.
Okay.
But to answer your question, it is a big calculation, and sometimes you get it wrong. I've got a flip closing on Monday that I will be losing money on. It's frustrating. You've got to be able to anticipate how much you're going to spend on the house and how much you're going to sell it for, and then work backwards. When you sell it, you're paying commissions. You got double closing costs because you bought it once and you're selling it once. You got to take all that stuff into account and predict as best you can. I have a buddy of mine who wants to go flip a house right now, and he's like, let's go do it. I got money. I'll partner with you. I'll do it. I'm like, great. I'm glad you're excited. But I have to be honest with you right now, today, whatever day is, March 20th, it is so hard to find a deal that I know unequivocally will make money. There's just a lot of really tight deals. And some of it comes from experience. I think that the deals are going to start loosening up some. There's a lot of speculation. I think the foreclosures are finally starting to come. The eviction moratoriums are letting up. There's going to be a lot more houses available that are distressed. And so when there's a lot of distressed houses available, the margins tend to get larger and you tend to have a little bit more luck. Right now, nobody's getting kicked out of their house. So we're waiting patiently. That's the question. That's the rub. How do I know? I go in, I look at the property price. The basic answer is, what do I think I can sell it for? I take 75% of that. Let's say it's 100. I think I can sell it for $100,000. I take 75%, so I'm at $75,000. How much rehab does it need? I think it needs $40,000 in rehab. I will purchase this house for $35,000. That's my general math.
for example, there's one that's on the market down here. It's on Main Street. There's some investors coming in and trying to flip houses and make it a nicer area. There's one on the market that's like 104,000. And I mean, the back wall of this house is a tarp. I mean, it's bad, like really bad. So anyway, I was looking at the tax value, which, do you ever look at that? Like, do you go and look at the value of the home? Like, how
I
do you
mean,
figure out what the real value of that home is?
so great question. Do I look at the tax value? Yes, I look at the tax value on every single house I look at, purchase, whatever it is. It gives me a general starting point. If you've sold enough houses, bought enough houses, you will realize that's called the assessed value. The tax assessor assesses that value. That value can be wildly off, or it can be spot on. I bought houses where that number's been off by $200,000. I bought houses where yep, that's what I'm selling it for. It's a good starting point. The tax assessor is basically going to say that your house goes up in value every single solitary year. I've seen like 3 instances where I saw the assessment drop. But that very suddenly happens. So I don't if there's no back wall to the house, then clearly it's not worth what it would work on the market, right? The tax assessor doesn't care. He's going to keep jacking it up and demand tax payment. And if nobody argues with him, then he's getting away with murder. So do I look at it? Yes. Like what you're saying, if the house is missing the backside of the wall, you better be damn sure about your rehab, right? That sounds like you've got foundation issues, roof issues, water rot issues. You're going to have electrical issues. You're going to have, God knows what kind of critters are running around in there, exterminate. All those things add up, and you're going to want to make sure you really understand that number. Just be careful. If you can't estimate rehab, take a general contractor with you. How much to make this a house? And he's going to ask you what kind of house. So you better know, do I want granite in there? Do I want Formica in there? Am I owner financing the deal, or am I going to try and flip it? Am I going to put renters in it? When I look at a house, I take all 3 of those into consideration. If I'm going to rent it, I'm going to build the house as indestructible as possible. Okay. I'm not going to put in cheap carpet. I'm not going to put in cheap laminate, because I know they're going to tear it up. Right. I'm going to get a heavier duty, probably more commercial grade stuff, right? Because I don't want them just beating the house to crap and then I got to go fix it, right? If I'm flipping it, I'm thinking higher end stuff. I want granite or quartz or marble, right? That's more expensive. It looks good. You know what I mean? I'm more concerned with looks over necessarily like commercial grade. Like, does it look good? Does it show well? On a rental, I don't care how it looks. You know what I mean? I just don't want you to tear it up. On a finance deal, I want it clean, safe, and affordable. I'm trying to keep it affordable. So I'm going to keep the cost down. I'm going to put Formica in. If you chip the Formica, that's on you. You know what I mean? Because it's not my problem. But I do want it to be clean, safe, and affordable. I'm trying to keep it affordable. That's the big one. I do check the electrical and the plumbing and all that. I want to make sure it works. I'm not going to sell them a turd, but I'm also not going to put quartz in it just because I want to owner finance you a nicer house. Because like I said, if you try and owner finance somebody a house at $300,000, the payments are going to be exorbitant at 11%. I don't even know what they are, but it's going to be really high. So that's kind of where that game comes from.
Can I ask a random, you were talking about, foreclosures and all that stuff. How is that working? Have you noticed anything with owner finance because I've understood, you can't really evict renters. You can't, right now because of COVID and stuff like that, there's been regulations and stuff like that on that. Has that affected anything in regards to your owner finance?
So that's an interesting question. I haven't had any problems with my owner finance. I don't think Eric has either.
Okay.
You just let them know, I guess they could during the eviction moratorium. Now, I've been getting conflicting information, so I haven't really researched it very thoroughly. But I had somebody tell me day before yesterday that private mortgages can, because we fall under Texas state law because we're only lending in Texas. Wells Fargo or whomever, they fall under federal law, so that federal moratorium stopped them. I don't know if that's correct or true or not. I don't know. I've been getting conflicting information on it. But I just haven't researched it because I haven't had a problem. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, keep paying, we're good. There's there's a big difference between deferment and forgiveness and, you know, all that kind of stuff. You gotta stay abreast. Like during the, like, I hate saying this because I hate that term, but it is really an unprecedented time, at least as far back as I've researched. I don't know if anybody's lived through this where they've had these kind of things, but you got to know the law. You got to talk to it. Whenever I do foreclose on anybody, which has happened, I bring a lawyer in. I don't pretend to know anything. And now it's not, I'm not liable, culpable, whatever you want to say, because the lawyer's handling it and they should know the law. I'm out, right? So you take care of it. Yes, I got to pay them, whatever. And one of the big things on owner finance, since this is about owner finance, is you can foreclose on somebody, and foreclosures are held by the county. Okay, so if you foreclose on somebody, you have to advise the county. I have to go to Bexar County, Guadalupe County, whatever, right? I have to go to the county office and say, hey, look, I'm foreclosing on this guy. And now all of a sudden I fall into that jurisdiction. Okay, I still have to follow state and federal laws, but now I have to do whatever the county tells me. And they are different from county to county. Now, foreclosure is a big, nasty, hairy process. It takes about 3 to 4 months. Needless to say, there's lots of back and forth. They're going to be pissed. And you got to grit. So you're going to take a house back. But when you foreclose on somebody, you don't immediately get it back. You have to auction it at the courthouse steps. So I could go buy your house if I wanted to, right? Like you have to, and if you want to, like you can set the auction price and you get it back, but you still have to pay that, okay, to get the whole thing done. With that being said, when a house is foreclosed, it wipes all liens off of it. So if they owe me $86,000, I better go to the courthouse with $86,000 saying, yep, I want that house. Now all liens are wiped and I start over. But what's stopping that person from tearing your house to crap? What if they're just like, that Joey, she's such a B, and they just, rip the house to the ground. Now you're stuck with an $86,000 problem. So what I do a lot of times, or what Eric does, and I haven't had to do it, but is something called a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So a deed, if you remember, transfers the property. So I go to them and I say, hey, look, I will not file for foreclosure. This will not go on your credit and add another ding. I'll even give you $500 in cash. Sign the house back over to me and leave. And you walk away from this thing scot-free. I'll forgive all your debt or whatever, and that's called a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So I'm just transfer it back to me and go away. We'll call it a day. And watching Eric do a million of these things, that works like 95% of the time, because they don't want to get in further south, because if they try to owner finance again with somebody who knows what they're doing, I'm going to pull up their credit and I'm going to be like, I noticed Joey foreclosed on you last month. Why the hell should I trust you, right? You know what I mean? So that's why I pull credit. And if they don't want that happening, that's another option for you to get that house back. Then you just owner finance it or flip it or rent it or, whatever you do next. So another option. So there's my spiel on owner finance. So now you got 3 options. 4 if you watch the one about wholesaling that I did early on. There's a lot of different ways to do this stuff. So I will say, as you look at properties, watch these videos a few times, go through them, walk the property and think to yourself, would this fit the owner finance model? You've got all the numbers right there. Would this fit the rental model? You got all the numbers. Owner finance, I want to be all in for 70%. Rentals, I want to be all in for 75, maybe 80%. A flip, if I just see that there's a ton of value add, I can make a quick 50 grand and get out of here, right?
I want a checklist for all of them, please. Thank you.
Man, I should.
Please and thank you.
That's actually a good idea. That way I could hire people to go out and say, start checking these things off and tell me which one this fits.
I want something that I can go, does this have this? Check. Does this have this? No. Like almost like a seller's disclosure, but for each type of.
The hard part, the reason why I think I'd have a really hard time making a checklist is
there's
because
so many factors.
The biggest check is going to be their rehab. So when I walk into a property, I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, if I rehab this like a flip, it's going to cost me 50 grand. If I rehab it like a rental, it's going to cost me 40 grand. If I rehab it like an owner finance, it'll cost me 30 grand. So, but just seeing enough of them, I kind of have those numbers in my head. And then I can say, okay, with that being said, what makes sense? So that's where the experience kind of comes in.
Well,
I tell everybody, and this is a big thing. If you want to, if y'all, I know y'all have families and kids and all that kind of stuff, so it's kind of hard for you. But for those of y'all that are watching this in the future that don't, your best bet to start real estate investing is something called a house hack. And I should probably do a short video about house hacking, but people have been doing it for a million years. It's when you buy a duplex, you live in one side and rent the other. Since you live there, you qualify for FHA if you're a veteran, you know, all that kind of stuff. So you can get in for a low down payment and you have somebody paying half your rent, basically, half your mortgage, which is nice. People that live in like real big metropolitan areas, Seattle, you know, San Francisco, they'll house hack with an actual house and they'll just rent out every single room. They'll buy a 5-bedroom house and have 4 roommates that they charge rent to. That's a great way to get started because it's the least amount of risk. I think the second less risky way is renting and doing the BRRRR strategy, because even if you go over budget, like let's say I buy a $100,000 house, I put 50 grand into it and it appraises for 140. So I'm 10 grand over budget. Like I just can't get my 10 grand out. If you rent the property for long enough, appreciation will catch up. If you hold any piece of property long enough, you seem like a genius. Okay. It's like you look like an idiot when you try and flip and you lose money, you know, but if I could, like the one that I'm flipping, I could rent it out and just wait 5 years and then try and sell it again. But I've got a lot of money in it, so I just want the capital back out. I'm going to take my licks. Flipping is without a doubt the most dangerous. Without a doubt, the most dangerous. There's just so many variables.
And I may have missed this. I may have missed this because I'm still playing catch up on videos and stuff like that. But how do you recommend people start off with the whole financing of it if you don't have, like, you know, yourself, you don't have some
$200,000 to go do it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is there a method that you would recommend for that?
So, yeah, watch that flipping video.
Uh-huh.
I go through some examples, and Hillary was on that video, and she talked about how she uses private money. So she knows some really rich guy that's got $5 million in cash. I don't know how much money, but let's just say he's got $5 million in cash. She borrows money from him at 6%. That's a hell of a deal. You can use hard money. You can do that. If you house hack, you can get an FHA loan for a house hack, which is crazy. You can get a house hack FHA loan that for a house that needs repairs. I think it's called a 403K. The 403B is the regular FHA. 403K is one that has rehab money in it. So you could buy a turd of a duplex where one side's fine, you live in there, you fix up the other side, and FHA is financing it for you at 3%. That's stupid good, right?
Yeah.
So finding the money is a game. The easiest way to find money is to talk to a hard money lender, but a hard money lender is expensive. You got to be ready to pay 12 to 15% of my money. Everybody shaking their head. They're like, oh no, hard money, that's scary. I heard that's how people get burnt. People get burnt on hard money because they're trying to do a flip and they take too damn long doing it. When you take too damn long, hard money is expensive and it hurts. The longer you hold it, like it's just like whatever. Like I got with this flip right here, I'm losing money on. The appraisal came back low on top of everything else. So I could hire another appraiser. I could raise hell. I could do all this stuff. But I know on the first of the month, I have a $1,500 interest payment due. So if I go get more appraisers and tie this thing up and stretch out this closing, it's going to cost me $1,500 just to think about it. Is it worth it? So hard money is a viable solution. You just have to have a hell of a deal. You got to have enough money in there to be able to pay the hard money. Get your loan. Hey, little man.
Waving the wrong way, buddy.
It's okay. Close enough for country. So, all right. Well, that's owner finance. Find a deal. Bring it to me. I'll help you analyze it. It doesn't bother me at all. I love analyzing deals. If you think you have a deal, Kim, send me that deal. Is it in the MLS?
It is. Yeah, I was looking at, I'll send it to you. I was looking at the tax stuff earlier and it says like it's assessed at 34 or 37,000. So that's all, I was like, how are they getting that number? How are they selling it for 104,999? But it just says like, how do you know it's a deal at that point? You know, because it's way off.
Yeah, the assessment is probably taking into consideration that it's falling down.
Yeah, I'm going to text you the listing.
Whoever the current owner is, you can argue your assessment. I do it every single year on my house. They say your house is worth this much. And I just do comps and I show them this house next door sold for this. How the heck is mine worth that? Right? You just reverse your comp. Instead of looking for the highest value, look for the least amount of value. And they'll argue with you. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But yeah, so he may have gone in there and go, this house is missing a wall. It ain't worth that. But he'll try and sell it for it.
Yeah.
Right? That's why the assessed value, if you have somebody like me, like when I do go to sell the house that I live in, I mean, I'm going to sell it probably 60 grand over what it's assessed at, because I argue with those guys every single year. And when I go to sell it, I'm going to argue with the other realtor the exact opposite way. Well, that house over there sold for $1 million, right? So I'm going to try and get my value. So it's just the game. It's just the game you play.
Okay.
Fun, isn't it? It's lots of numbers. Real estate investing is not about spending time in the tile showroom picking out the perfect tile. That is not what it is. It is numbers, 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 numbers. Okay? Yes, I would love to have the perfect tile. That'd be great. How much does it cost? That's my next question. I would love to have marble in all my houses. I would love, but will the house support that? Can I sell it for marble prices? I went and looked at a house this morning. $370,000 is what they're asking for it, and I think I could probably sell it for 580 grand. Ooh, Colin, that's a great spread. What do I have to spend to make it a $580,000 house? I'm gonna need a golden toilet. I'm gonna need a big fast walk-in shower with 7 shower heads. I'm gonna need all of that stuff. So the rehab numbers change. So
you put all that in, it's worth 7.
Maybe. Then what happens when the appraiser comes out and says, oh, it's actually worth 525? That's the hard thing about flipping. All numbers, 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 numbers.
Is there a video?
It's really funny when you talk to Eric and you talk about stuff, he doesn't really say it much, but he's pretty damn good at numbers. You get to get him talking, he'll start throwing numbers at you, and you're like, hold on a minute, time out.
See, I was gonna say, numbers is where I struggle. So you had to take me down to about 5th grade level.
Yes.
Explain it to me like a 5th grader. Everything else, I'm good. I'll get it. I just need it.
The good news is every real estate deal I've ever done, I am a math guy. I took trig, I took Cal 1, Cal 2, elementary. Now, I mean, I went through I'm a numbers guy. The most difficult real estate transaction is basic algebra. It is basic algebra. Blank plus X equals this, right? What is the X? The X tends to be the rehab number. The rest of it makes perfect sense. If I can sell a house for $150,000 and I know I got to pay commission, I know I got to pay closing costs, you know how much you'll take home. You know what they're asking for it. We just got to figure out X. How much does it take to get it to that point? That's more experience than it is math. But yeah, it's not hard numbers, but the numbers are important. If the numbers don't work, guys, I have a crew of 8 people that work for me. I've needed to buy a house for like 2 months now because I need to get these guys working. I can't find a deal and they hate me. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not willing to lose money on a deal just so you have something to do tomorrow.
Well, isn't it hard to find deals right now in this market anyway?
That's the problem. It's the market. It's the fact that nobody's had foreclosures. There's just not enough people that have to leave to find deals. And which is fine. I mean, you zig instead of zag, right? I have these guys, what I do is like, I want to keep them working. I'm not saying that they shouldn't work because I mean, that's what they're here to do. You know, that's why they work for me, but it's like, you're going to go paint my rental. It needs new paint. That's what I literally told them today. You take 3 guys, you go paint this rental because they need to work. Fine, go work. But I just don't want to buy a new house, a new fun project because I can't find the right one. You got to be incredibly discerning with that.
Do you ever factor in, other than the numbers, do you ever factor in like school districts and all that kind of stuff when you start to narrow down?
In the ARV, it depends. I mean, if I'm looking to flip a $150,000 house, more than likely the school district's not going to be a huge deal. I mean, a little bit. Who's your end buyer? If you're flipping a 5-bedroom house, it's probably a family. If you're
Yeah.
flipping a 2-1,
Okay.
it might be a bachelor, it might be somebody who works from home. You know what I mean? I don't know. So it depends. Do I take a lot of weight on it? No, because the value will dictate that for me almost automatically. High desired neighborhoods will demand higher value. So if I see the values there, I'm not really worried about it. Somebody's going to want it. Figure that whole thing out.
Okay.
Like that house I told you I looked at it for 370. It's a good school district, not good schools in that school district.
Ah.
But if somebody's buying a $600,000 house, maybe they afford private school. I don't know. But somebody across the street lives in a $600,000 house that has 5 bedrooms. What are they doing with their kids? You know? So, I mean, do I think about it? Sometimes. Is it going to stop me from buying a house? Not if the money's there. Not if the demand's there.
Okay.
So.
All right. Makes sense.
Yeah. Send me that deal, Kim. I'll help you analyze it.
I just texted to you. Yeah.
Okay. And do me another favor. Run comps on it for me. What do you think it could sell for?
Okay.
Now, if you look at other houses and none
You
of
mean in its current state?
No. After
Oh.
repair. So that's we use that term all the time. ARV. Investors use that term ARV, after repair value. What is it worth?
Yeah, like how do you determine that based on like if you have no experience, how would I even determine that? One, there's no like pictures of the inside of this house or anything, so I have no idea what it looks like.
Have you been in it? No, you
no,
said you have no idea.
I literally just saw it on the MLS.
Okay, so here's what I would do. Before I even got in my car and drove to look at it, even if it's a block away from me, I'm going to pull up all, let's say it's a 3-2, 1,500 square feet, right? For simple sake. I'm going to pull up every 3-2 in that neighborhood and look at them. This 3-2 has Formica. This 3-2 has Formica. This 3-2 has Formica and ugly wallpaper. This 3-2 has Formica, ugly wallpaper, and a yellow toilet. So they're all like this 1970s feel, okay? So that's telling me none of the houses in that area have been rehabbed, okay? So now that tells me right there, I can't go high end on the rehab. The neighborhood's not going to support it. Fair enough, right? So now I know that. And if I know that all the 3-2s that have not been rehabilitated have sold for $150,000, I know when I'm done with this house, if I do a similar rehab, it should sell somewhere around $150,000, okay? Then I'm going to go look at the house. I'm going to determine how much is it going to take for me to put Formica and a yellow toilet, which I'm not going to do clearly, but for a mid-grade rehab. How much will this cost me? It's going to cost me 40 grand. Okay, they're asking 105. I can sell it for 150 and it's going to cost me 40 grand. 145 minus it's a $5,000 profit if I pay 0 commissions to anybody, 0 money holding cost, 0. There's no way you're going to make money on it.
Right.
So many people say that to me all the time. Oh man, you put 50 grand, you sell it for 200. That's 15,000 in profit. I'm like, are you paying the other realtor? Are you paying commissions? Are you paying holding cost? Are you paying there's so many other little details that go into it. That's why I started off at 25%. If I know I can sell it for 150, what's 75 or what's 75% of 150? I did this earlier this morning. I'm going to tell you wrong, so I don't want to do it. So I got a $150,000 house. That's $112,000. So that tells me right there, I have to be all in for a maximum of 112. So you said they're asking 105?
Yeah.
So I need to know, can I do that rehab for $7,000?
For how much?
7,000. So 105 plus 7 gets me to 112. I don't want to be in it for more than 112 if I'm going to sell it for 150. That's me. I like doing 75% deals or better. Some people feel comfortable doing an 80% deal or an 85% deal. I don't know.